Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the show. A very important event in our island's rich history and culture is coming up. It is the Mannengon Memorial Ceremony. I'm very pleased and privileged to have Rosanna Villagomez-Uggan here and Willie Flores, and we were talking about what is essentially, Rosanna, like I said, it's very important for the young people to come and understand, but it's also very important for the older generation to remember and then pass down these lessons to younger people. So thank you for being here.
Oh yes, thank you for having us.
Okay, so can we find out all about the event and what your involvement in it is?
Well, I'm part of the foundation as a member, and I'll just announce that Willie is our president for our foundation. And what we are planning for is on July 2nd, the 73rd Mannengon Memorial Ceremony. And basically it includes the Freedom Run, beginning in the morning, with the different parts of the island. And then all meeting at the Elig Bridge intersection into Mannengon, where the river is, the Elig Bridge River, at 2 o'clock, and then on march into Mannengon. And once they reach the site, then a service, ceremony, mass, and dinner to commemorate the important event.
Well, Willie, it is of critical importance that this work continue, and even today's young kids, there may be only 3 generations max removed from that generation and everything like that. So what do you try and pass down to the young people about knowing about that part of Chamorro culture and history?
Well, that's what we want to do. We want to pass down because much of our history is oral, not written, and I'm really glad that there's a lot of younger historians now that are starting to put their efforts into written history. But what we want to emphasize is that while many times when we talk about the war and the end of the war, we talk about the Japanese occupation and we talk about the liberation. However, what we don't hear about a lot of time is what it took for our people to survive as a people. And so Mannengon, we've got Mannengon, we've got Faja and Tinta coming up, we've got Fena, we've got Sagrian coming up. All of those are microcosms of what really happened to the Chamorro people and how did our people survive, how did our people get through those times, what got them through those times, the sad things, the horrible things, and some funny stuff. When after all the emotion is spent, some of the funnier stuff comes around. But that's what we try to emphasize to them is that, look, your people went through some really, really traumatic times. Your people made it through with flying colors, and you can't forget that. We cannot forget that.
And is it perhaps because, the emotional weight of what our ancestors and what those who came before us went through and everything, it's maybe that kind of thing that, like the more dramatic parts about, the liberation when the Marines stormed the beach,
right.
And then when the Japanese first came here. But then you're right, there is that gap that for whatever reason people don't, talk about, either because, it's just too sad, or, people don't want to relive those memories, or as a sign of respect, they don't want to say, this is what my grandmother went through, and, I just rather not touch that kind of material.
Well, you hit the nail right on the head because so many horrible things happened to our people. The ones who went through it, most of them, you've experienced this, Jason, most of them don't want to talk about it. And they especially don't want to talk about it to their families. So as a foundation, we have taken it upon ourselves to talk to the folks that won't talk to their families and try to get their stories out. I mean, we've been doing this now for pretty close to 2 decades. I mean, the actual memorial ceremony itself, this will be our actual, I think, 14th year doing it, 13th or 14th year doing it. And every year we've collected survivor stories, war stories, and we have a pretty good collection and recollection of what happened. And the amazing thing, Jason, is that a lot of their stories jive. When you get a lot of people together and something traumatic happens, you always have all these different things, right? But what we found out about what happened there is that the stories all jive. Whether or not these people knew each other, their stories jive. For the most part. Yeah.
Now, Rosanna, for people whose, unfortunately some people have passed on, or, maybe grandchildren, great-grandchildren would like to go there and represent their families, they're certainly invited to do so, right? Oh,
yes, they are. As a matter of fact, I'm one of those. This is my first time, and the Mannengon, if you remember that we talked about the Christmas display, there was a display there that was put together, the Jerusalem site that was put together by some of the members of the Mannengon Foundation, and it was dedicated to Mannengon. And so I decided that this year I had the time and wanted to get involved, and it's been a really learning experience. And I'm one of those where my mom doesn't remember much about during the war, and my dad didn't talk about it. Just only a couple of things. And so And so, you know, I'm having to learn, and I've been learning through others as well as through history.
Okay, so real quick, we got to go to commercial break, but when can people partake of this? Where should they show up and what time?
They can show up at 2 o'clock at the Elig. Now that's where the march begins in. So they can show up there at 2 o'clock.
The Elig Bridge.
At the Elig Bridge.
On July
And be
2nd.
a part of, on July 2nd, yes, and be a part of the march in, and then as well as the ceremony. We do have the Freedom Run that's being done at various points of the island, in Alahan, Agate, Piri, and Jigo. And those are by some of our law enforcement agencies.
Okay, well, we'll make sure to put this very lovely poster also up.
Yes. Yes.
And you can find that on our
Yes.
social media channel so that you can find out how to participate in what is a very, once again, important part of Chamorro history. Stay tuned, we're back after this.